Hi, my name's Amanda. I am a coach and a trance channel, and welcome to my YouTube channel where I bring forward messages from beings of light to help us expand our level of awareness and perspective. And specifically trance channeling, if you're not familiar with what that is, I invite beings of light into my physical body so that they can transmit a frequency and a message directly from me to you. And I'm continuing along with my Hindu goddess series today. Lakshmi is here, and she wants to talk about the topic of sorrow, and sorrow being very different from pain. She wants to talk about why we experience sorrow inside of this lifetime and how to come to terms with that aspect of our experience here when it can be incredibly challenging to work through, and how sorrow is oftentimes something that we keep hidden from the world when that tends to amplify the experience and make it much more challenging to work through. It's a really beautiful, beautiful transmission, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, my loves. What fun I have planned for you today. I am so excited to be here with all of you. And I believe that I am going to be offering you a perspective that you may not have considered previously. For the topic that I plan on bringing forward today is not one that is particularly enjoyable to speak of, but is one that will be massively beneficial for you to have in consideration moving forward. Because sorrow is something that we all deal with inside of a lifetime here. However, it is something that bonds us deeply because it is quite a universal experience and sensation to hold inside of one of us. However, the topic of sorrow as a form of discussion is not something that humans desire to have amongst one another because it is uncomfortable. And the discomfort associated with feeling sorrow does not want to be evoked inside of a conversation that elicits it. Therefore, the topic of sorrow is never breached and it is kept in the shadows to be felt and experienced alone. And the unfortunate part about this process of desiring to experience sorrow alone means that you are always alone when you are experiencing it. And the very experience of sorrow itself can be a lonely one. And therefore, that loneliness that one feels inside of the experience is exacerbated tenfold. Sorrow is simply a desire to feel something different from what we are experiencing in that moment because we believe the experience to be unjust. And we are mourning for the part of us that desires something more. Mourning does not have to be in the midst of a departed loved one, a death of some sort, a loss. Mourning can be an experience in relation to anything that you are enduring that you do not desire to. And you are mourning the existence of something that you perceive to be more just. And what I desire for you to know about the experience of sorrow in this lifetime is that it is self-imposed. It is a belief system that something must be different than it is that is creating this feeling for you. And there's nothing wrong with that belief system. It is simply worth noting that it is not necessarily in place unless you create it for yourself. Experiencing the loss of a loved one evokes sorrow in a very real way because you are desiring a different outcome. You are remembering a time in your life where this person was still alive and well, and part of the existence that you desire to share with them that you know will no longer be the same for you. And so you are mourning the part of you that feels this deeply. And rather than know that they are at peace and with you still, simply in a different capacity, you choose to see it differently. And this is a natural part of the mourning process. But I am not speaking of mourning in and of itself. I'm speaking of the feeling of sorrow. And sorrow can be enjoyed to a certain extent because many of you choose to feel sorrow when it is not necessarily needed. You grieve for the parts of you that do not feel fulfilled in your life. You grieve for the experiences you never perceived to be available for you. And you place certain people in your life up on a pedestal and grieve for the part of you that believes that you will never be on par with them. And this all elicits feelings of sorrow, and that come with it the loneliness inside of that existence, the truth that you hold inside of you that you will never quite have the experience of you that you desire to ever again, if you ever did. And this experience of sorrow is desired inside of a lifetime because when you are not here, when you are existing in a different plane of existence, you do not experience yourself in quite the same way. You see things through a different lens and perspective. And what's available for you is the inner knowing that everything is available for you in the way that you cannot see it here and now. And so the experience of sorrow on the different plane of consciousness is very different. And your ability to grieve inside of a different level of awareness is not quite the same. When you do not perceive your own sense of limitation, you do not grieve it. You do not grieve the loss of the part of you that you wish to gain back again because you do not see loss in quite the same way. You welcome it because you know that it is simply a level of awareness that you are choosing to buy into at that time. Whereas loss on this planet cannot be regained, it is something that is definite. And when you believe in that potential fully with every ounce of your being, it becomes very different to see things differently. And that is why sorrow is deeply desired to be experienced inside of a human lifetime, because you cannot quite experience it anywhere else, not in the same way, where it is so all-encompassing here. It can only be witnessed and gently tapped into elsewhere. And as I desire for you to know that the loved ones that watch over you inside of a reality where you do not quite have access to them in the same way you used to, they watch you in your mourning, they watch you in your sorrow, and they grieve with you. They desire for you to know how much they still love you, regardless of the words exchanged and the actions taken place. And they want you to know that sorrow is not an issue for them. And if you feel sorrow inside of your lifetime, that is on some level to be embraced because it's what you're here to experience more of. But I desired for you to know that they are with you regardless. And if time and distance is what you need in order to grieve, take it. And I desire to have a conversation around why we choose to be alone inside of our sorrow. There's an aspect of grieving inside of the human experience that is deemed to be selfish in a way, shameful, to fully open up to, because the space and time needed to be inside of your own energy is oftentimes deemed to be unforgiving to those who may require more of you than you are able to give them in that moment. And if you have grown inside of an environment where you feel that it is necessary to give more than you take, it can oftentimes feel uncomfortable to ask for that time back when you need it most. And there is something oddly unsatisfying about revealing a part of you that feels that it is unable to show up in the way that you desire to, that you may be perceived as weak, incapable, or less than for your desire to be in your own company. And this creates an element of shame and judgment that we simply feel for ourselves because we do not desire to feel less than in the midst of another. But this is once more perspective and adding to your discomfort and your suffering where you needn't do otherwise. Suffering is self-imposed, my loves, and that is not to say that it is wrong to do so. It is simply worth noting once more. When you can allow yourself the experience of sorrow, you can see that it is widely accepted to have that time and space to do so for as long as is required of you. And when you can give yourself the opportunity to feel all of the pain that desires to be felt with a loving embrace from the parts of you that desire to hold you through it, just as your loved ones do as they watch over you and desire for you to take the time that you may need to move through it, you will see that those around you are more than likely allowing of it, respectful of it, and not desiring or needing more of you than you may have perceived them to. And those who do not know how to grant you the space and time that is needed cannot do so for themselves. And this is simply a reflection of the shame that they hold around their inability to feel what desires to be felt inside of them. How can you see them for what they are, which is in pain and working through their own sorrow and grieving for the parts of themselves that they are not yet ready to show the compassion where you are starting to feel is necessary and obliged for you? When we all become more allowing of one another to grieve and feel sorrow whenever it is desired to be felt, we will all see that the desire to feel sorrow dissipates in and of itself, because all that sorrow is a desire to be seen and recognized by oneself inside of a reality that it does not feel justifiable. And when you can justify every reality as it is, sorrow is no longer needed inside of it. I am here with you always, always. And I desire to hold a safe space for you to feel all the grief and all the sorrow that lives in you. And when you can begin to allow what desires to be felt to be freely accessed, you will feel the love available for you on the other side of it. You will feel the loved ones around you showering you with compassion where you were holding them at bay before, because they can only be felt when you allow feeling in But sometimes you must move through grief and sorrow before you can feel the love available to you on the other side of it. If you are grieving at this time, call me forward. Allow me to be part of the experience with you and to remind you to take your time with it. Sometimes it is needed. And the more you hold it at bay, the longer you postpone the love you desire to feel and the safety inside of being who you are without shame and regret for needing the time and space to do so at your leisure. I love you all deeply and dearly. And I wish for you the pain that you desire to feel so that you may find the love available to you in the midst of it. Thank you for your time. Much love.